96. Touch and law. A very interesting aspect of the doctrine of the divine right of kings was the king's touch. The kings of England, for example, could supposedly heal scrofula by their touch. Queen Elizabeth often healed people. Charles I on Midsummer Day 1633 cured 100 people in the Holyrood Chapel Royal, and Charles II, during his reign, is said to have touched close to 100,000 persons. A king's person could not be lightly touched. He was a species of divinity, and his person was inviolable. His touch was a favour, an act of grace, and it thus had a healing potential. However false this faith with respect to kings, it is sound with respect to God. The healing touch of Jesus is often cited in the Gospels. In the story of the woman who had an issue of blood 12 years, who came behind our Lord and touched the border of his garment, her reasoning was, "If I do but touch his garment, I shall be made whole," or saved. Matthew chapter 9, verse 20. The Greek word for touch is hapto, to fasten or cling to, lay hold of, to have fellowship and association with. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17. In 1 John chapter 5, verse 18, we are told that "He that is begotten of God keepeth himself, and that wicked one toucheth him not." Satan's touch communicates his evil. Christ's touch communicates his grace and power. Touch is thus not only physical touch, but is also used for fellowship and communion. When the woman touched the hem of Jesus' garment by faith, she was made whole. We are told that Jesus perceived in himself that the power proceeding from him had gone forth. Mark chapter 5, verse 30. In a humanistic and existentialist framework, there is no God to touch or to have fellowship with, and neither are there any people. Every man is his own private universe and God. Wilson Bryan Key calls modern teenage dancing the loneliest scene in town. No touching is permitted, not even with the eyes. On the intellectual scene, we have had several generations of contempt for small-town neighbourly life, because it involves too great an intimacy, too close a fellowship between peoples. The preference has been for the anonymity of the big, modern city, New York in particular, where there is no closeness and no responsibility for other people. The result of all this has been isolation and sterility for man, and modern urban culture has a tinsel, flash and cheapness because of its basic lack of touch with God and man. Men now suffer, as they pass their teens and 20s, from this isolation, and the result is the substitution of this superficial touch for reality. Man is out of touch with God, out of communion with his Lord, and hence out of touch or communion with himself and his fellow men. He looks for his substitute in a new king's touch. In group grope therapy, people touch and handle one another for ostensible therapy, each as a divine king touching and supposedly healing both himself and the other. In this modern mockery of our Lord's healing touch, each egocentric person trades touches with another, and each remains a stranger to God, man, and self. Another aspect of this modern view of touch is the groupie, the girl who is anxious and eager to have sexual relations with every important or famous person they can waylay. This impetus is also very strong among the wealthy and the famous. Each seeks power and the touch of power by seeking sex promiscuously with, quote, important people, end quote. Thus, F.D. Roosevelt, to cite one example among many, delighted in commanding the millionaire granddaughter of a famous banker. It gave him a sense of power to control her. She, in turn, while finding him a boring and superficial man, saw him as a sun god because of his political power and never refused him. Her husband encouraged the relationship, which gave him a second-hand touch with the world's most powerful man. Such activity is commonplace today. It gives blacks a sense of power to touch and copulate with a white, and a white feels the same about sex with a black. Sleeping with a Jewish girl gives renegade Catholics and Protestants a perverse delight, and Jewish men get a similar pleasure in taking a girl from the ranks of Gentiles. The same perverse impulse is true of women who seek extramarital sex. The goal is to gain power over the other, and the point of touch is to dominate, despoil, and possess, not to establish community. Sex is reduced to a power game devoid of love. Arthur Koestler, in his novel The Call Girls, satirizes the international academic community, which regularly meets in conferences to present solutions to all the world's problems. He calls them call girls, prostitutes of the intellectual world who are interested in power and who disguise their degeneracy with high-sounding professions of humanitarianism. Their basic philosophy is that democracy is too serious a matter to be left to the electorate. Their answer to world problems includes full self-expression. Never be reasonable about anything. Get rid of your irritations. Don't keep your feelings corked up any more than you would your stomach. Yelling gets the knot out of your guts. Remember, they that spit shall inherit the earth. All of this only puts people more out of touch with one another. The wealthy Dorothy Schiff had her first husband tell her, when she appeared beautifully gowned for breakfast on the morning after their wedding, "I never could stand women in the morning." And that was our last breakfast together. Her fourth husband was a wealthy man, and she a wealthy woman. Even when we were married, he wanted to go 50-50 in the hotel bill, and I said, "God damn it, on our honeymoon, you can pay. After that, I'll go 50-50. Her life, while full of physical touch, was out of touch with the reality of life, God and His creation and law. Isolation and sterility are the marks of a man and culture when God is not central to all things. Man hungers for the healing touch of power and grace. He will seek the touch of power and grace where he believes it to exist. The lust for the touch of power, contact with the wealthy and the famous, is evidence of faith that these people are the source of power. Dorothy Schiff's life witnesses to the fact that the intellectuals, the politicians, and the wealthy are often in a frenzied search for power in the touch of one another. All are empty. All seek power in another man, because their faith is in man. Of Jesus, we are told that the people pressed or rushed upon him for to touch him, as many as had plagues. Mark chapter 3, verse 10. Nowadays, the pressing or rushing to touch is centered on famous people because man's hope is in man. Reforms thus will accomplish nothing as long as man hungers for the healing, cleansing touch from man. Only when men see their need for God's royal touch, the true king's touch, will politics, wealth, and intellectual culture recede to their rightful and limited place in society. Men will not be out of touch with their fellow men when they are touched by God. Law is a form of touch, a hold, a principle of fellowship and association between God and man and among men. In a humanistic society, men naturally seek humanistic laws. The humanistic law, touch or fellowship, moves in terms of the preeminence of man, hence its insistence upon democracy and equality. However, because humanistic faith locates law in man, it also destroys the democracy and equality it professes. If power is in man, then some men will obviously and empirically demonstrate that they have more power than others by political, economic, sexual, or some other means. Humanism thus enthrones the charismatic leader, the person whose being radiates power and whose touch is hence desired. Other people then press or rush upon him to touch him and to gain power thereby. For such people, law is of necessity humanistic, because for them power proceeds from man. The cry is, power from the people, and power to the people. It was Hitler who held, all power issues from the people. Like Stalin, he became the voice of that people and the totality of its power. The Berkeley version renders 1 John chapter 5 verse 18 thus: He whose birth is from God retains hold on him, and the wicked one does not get a grip on him. If we are in touch with God, we are in touch with His life, grace, and law. If we are in touch with the evil one, we are under his dominion and law, the law of antinomianism and anarchy, every man his own God. We cannot eliminate the lawlessness of our time unless we hearken to Isaiah. Cease ye from man whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? Isaiah chapter 2, verse 22.